All right, so we're diving into the Kybalion
Oh, yeah.
and how to apply it to your life.
Yeah, that's a great one.
And the source material we have today is a YouTube video lecture by the Master Key Society, and they have their own take on the book's core principles.
And what's interesting about this video is that it doesn't actually quote the book directly.
Oh, interesting.
It's more about their interpretations of the principles themselves.
Like a distilled version.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Ready for application.
Okay, so where do they begin with something like the Kybalion?
Well, they start by diving into the enigma that is Hermes Trismegistus,
Okay.
the supposed author of the book.
Right.
And he is shrouded in mystery, considered the father of occult wisdom, founder of astrology, even discoverer of alchemy.
Wow. He's like a legend.
Talk about a resume, right?
So how do we even know he existed
Well, that's the thing.
or wrote this book?
The details of his life are pretty much lost to history.
Oh.
Was he actually from Egypt? Or did other ancient cultures claim him as their own? Was he even a single person or more of a title passed down through generations of wise individuals?
Oh, that's interesting.
We just don't know for sure.
So it's like a puzzle with missing pieces.
Yeah,
Okay.
but the video still claims that the Kybalion presents his fundamental teachings.
Okay, so that's a good starting point. If it's his teachings, even if we don't know about him.
That's right. The video explains that the Kybalion offers a master key to unlock the mysteries of the universe, kind of like a cheat sheet for understanding how everything works.
Okay, so even if we don't know about Hermes,
Right.
the teaching still has power.
The teachings still hold a lot of power.
Okay, so how does this master key actually work?
Well, the video focuses on the 7 hermetic principles outlined in the Kybalion.
Okay.
Think of them as the pillars of this entire system of thought.
Right.
Get this, the very first one is mentalism.
Mentalism.
The idea that the all is mind.
Okay.
It's a mind-blowing concept. Like saying, you know how you can create images in your mind?
Yeah.
Well, imagine a higher power doing the same thing, but on a cosmic scale.
Whoa.
That's mentalism. The entire universe is a mental creation.
Okay, so everything we experience is basically a thought.
It definitely challenges our everyday perception of reality.
Yeah, I need a minute to process that.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
Just because it's a mental creation doesn't mean it's not real.
Right.
We still experience this universe through our senses,
Yeah.
interact with it, and are shaped by it.
Yeah.
It's more about understanding the true nature of reality on a deeper level.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. But how does that actually help us apply these teachings in our lives?
Right.
Knowing that the universe is a thought is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But what can we actually do with that information?
Well, that's where the other principles come into play.
Okay.
And the next one, correspondence, provides a crucial link.
Okay.
It states as above, so below, suggesting that the same patterns and laws that govern the universe also operate within us.
So like a microcosm and a macrocosm.
Exactly.
What happens in the big picture also happens on a smaller personal level.
Exactly.
Okay.
And if you think about it, that's incredibly empowering.
It is.
It means if we can understand how these principles work in the universe, we can also learn how they operate within ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's where the real magic happens.
Okay. I can see how that would be useful.
Right.
So what are some of these other principles that can help us bridge the gap between the universe and ourselves?
Well, there's vibration.
Yeah.
The idea that everything from the tiniest atom to the vastest galaxy is constantly moving and vibrating.
Okay.
This is where we get into some really interesting stuff about energy and frequency.
Okay, cool.
But before we get too deep into that...
Let's hear about the rest of the principles first, just to get a sense of the big picture.
Okay, great idea.
Okay.
So in addition to mentalism, correspondence, and vibration, we have polarity, which says that everything has its opposite. Yeah.
Light and dark, love and hate. These are really just two sides of the same coin existing on a spectrum.
Okay, I think I've heard about that one. So like instead of trying to get rid of negative emotions, we can learn to transform them into positive ones.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's all about shifting our perspective and understanding that we have the power to move along that spectrum.
Gotcha.
Then there's rhythm,
Okay.
concept that everything flows in cycles,
Okay.
like the tides of the ocean or the cycle of day and night.
That one resonates with me. Life definitely has its ups and downs.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And the Hermetic principle of rhythm teaches us how to navigate those ups and downs without getting swept away by them.
Yeah.
Then we have cause and effect.
Okay.
The idea that nothing happens randomly.
Okay.
Every action has a consequence.
Right.
So understanding this principle helps us make better choices.
So it's about taking responsibility for our actions, understanding that we create our own reality in a way.
Exactly.
And finally, there's gender, which isn't about biological sex,
Yeah.
but rather about masculine and feminine principles operating in the mind.
Okay.
It's about balancing these forces within ourselves for a more harmonious and balanced existence.
Okay. That's a lot to take in, but I'm already starting to see how these principles could be applied in everyday life.
Yeah.
It's not just some abstract philosophy. It's a practical guide to understanding ourselves and the world around us.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the Kybalion so fascinating. It offers a framework for understanding reality that can lead to real-world transformation.
I'm definitely excited to explore that further. So where should we go from here? Which of these principles do we tackle first?
Well, since mentalism is the foundation of the entire system, I think that's a great place to start.
Okay.
And the video dives even deeper into this concept of a mental universe, offering some truly mind-blowing insights.
Okay, let's do it. I'm ready to have my mind blown wide open.
So we've established that the Kybalion presents this pretty radical idea. The universe is a mental creation.
Right.
Now, if that's true, it raises a pretty big question.
Okay. I'm all ears. What's the question?
Well, if the universe is a product of mind, whose mind are we talking about?
Good point. I guess that's where things start to get a little more metaphysical.
Right.
Does the video offer any answers?
It does. It introduces this concept of the all,
But
a higher power, a universal mind that's responsible for the creation of everything.
Okay.
Imagine just like you have thoughts and create images in your mind.
yeah.
The all creates the entire universe through its thoughts.
So we're like mini creators existing within the mind of a much larger creator.
It is.
That's a pretty wild thought.
It is, but it also makes you think about the potential power we hold within ourselves.
Right.
If the all can create an entire universe with its thoughts,
Wow.
what does that mean for our own creative abilities?
I see what you mean. If the universe is essentially thought, then maybe our thoughts have more power than we realize.
Exactly. And that brings us to a crucial point. If we want to understand the universe and our place within it, we need to understand the mind. We
Right.
need to understand how it works, what laws govern it, and how we can use it to consciously create the reality we desire.
Okay, I'm starting to see how the Kybalion isn't just some abstract philosophy.
Mhm.
It's a practical guide to using the power of our minds.
Right.
But how do we actually do that? How do we become conscious creators?
Well, the video suggests that the key lies in understanding and applying the 7 Hermetic principles.
Okay.
They're like the tools of a mental craftsman helping us shape and mold our reality.
All right, so let's get back to those principles we talked about, mentalism, correspondence. What comes next?
Next up is vibration.
Okay.
And this one's particularly relevant to the idea of mental creation.
Okay.
The Kybalion states that everything is in a constant state of motion, vibrating at different frequencies.
Okay.
This applies not only to physical matter, but also to our thoughts and emotions.
Wait, so you're saying my thoughts and emotions are actually vibrating?
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
Think about it this way. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt a shift in the energy?
Yeah.
Or noticed how certain people seem to radiate positive or negative vibes? That's all about vibration.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. But what does that have to do with mental creation?
Well, the Hermetists believed that by changing the rate and mode of our mental vibrations, we could change our mental states and ultimately influence our experiences.
Okay.
It's like tuning a radio.
Okay.
By adjusting the frequency, you can tune into different stations, different realities.
So if I'm feeling down or negative, I can try to raise my vibration to a more positive frequency. Is that what you're saying?
That's a key takeaway here.
Okay.
And this is where practices like meditation, visualization, and affirmations come into play.
Okay.
They can help us become more aware of our mental vibrations and learn to shift them consciously.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the other principle? How do they fit into all of this?
Well, let's take polarity, for example.
Okay.
Remember, it states that everything has its opposite existing on a spectrum.
Yeah.
The Hermetists believe that we can transmute negative states into positive ones by changing our mental polarity. Instead of trying to eliminate fear, for instance, we can cultivate courage.
Right.
Instead of dwelling on sadness, we can focus on joy.
So it's not about suppressing or denying negative emotions,
Yeah.
but about transforming them into something more positive.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that these seemingly opposite states are interconnected and that we have the power to shift our focus and energy along that spectrum.
I like that.
Right.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these principles can work together to help us master our minds and create a more positive reality.
Right.
But what about this idea of different planes of existence?
Okay.
Where does that fit into all of this?
That's where things get really fascinating.
Okay.
The Kybalion describes different planes of existence not as physical locations, but as degrees of vibration.
Okay.
Think of it like this. Imagine a scale with the physical world at the bottom vibrating at a lower frequency. As you go higher up the scale, the vibration increases, leading to more subtle planes like the mental and spiritual realms.
So it's like a ladder of consciousness.
Yeah.
The higher we climb, the higher our vibration, and the more we access these other realms.
That's a great way to visualize it.
Okay, cool.
And according to the Kybalion, these higher planes aren't just abstract concepts. They're populated by beings with greater awareness and power.
Okay, now this is starting to sound like something out of a fantasy novel.
Right.
Are you saying there are other entities, perhaps even higher beings, existing on these different planes?
That's what the Hermetic teachings suggest.
Okay.
And they believed that through practices like mental transmutation, we could eventually access these higher planes and connect with those beings.
Wow. That's a pretty mind-blowing concept. But
Mm-hmm.
before we get too carried away with visions of interdimensional travel,
Right.
let's get back to the practical application of these principles.
Okay.
We still have rhythm, cause and effect, and gender to explore.
Right. And those principles are equally important in understanding how to navigate this mental universe and unlock our full potential.
I'm definitely ready to dive deeper into those, but maybe we should save that for the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds like a plan. We'll pick up where we left off and explore how these principles can be used to transform our lives.
Okay, so we've explored some pretty mind-bending concepts.
Yeah.
A mental universe,
Right.
different planes of existence, vibrating thoughts and emotions.
It's wild stuff.
Yeah, but I kind of want to bring it back down to earth a little bit.
Okay.
Like, how can we actually use these principles to, like, make tangible changes in our lives?
Right. That's the million-dollar question. Right.
Yeah.
And that's where the remaining Hermetic principles come into play.
Okay.
Remember rhythm.
Yeah, everything flows in cycles.
Everything flows in cycles, right?
Yeah.
Well, the Hermetists believe that by understanding these cycles, we can become more deliberate in how we navigate them.
Okay, can you give me an example? I'm having trouble picturing how this applies.
Sure. Think about your own energy levels throughout the day. You probably have times when you feel super productive and motivated, followed by periods where you need to rest and recharge. Instead of resisting those natural ebbs and flows, try working with them. Schedule your most demanding tasks for your peak energy times and allow yourself downtime when you need it.
Okay, so it's about working smarter, not harder, by aligning ourselves with those natural rhythms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this applies to emotions as well. We all experience ups and downs, moments of joy and sorrow, excitement and disappointment. The key is to remember that these are just temporary states, like waves on the ocean. They'll inevitably rise and fall. So try not to get too caught up in the extremes.
So the next time I'm feeling down, I should just remind myself that it's a temporary state and it will pass.
That's great strategy.
Okay.
The Hermetists called this technique neutralization,
Neutralization.
the art of rising above those emotional swings and finding a point of balance.
Okay.
And this ties in beautifully with the principle of cause and effect.
Okay, remind me how cause and effect fits into all of this.
Well, it reminds us that we're not just passive bystanders in our own lives. Our thoughts, beliefs, and actions all have consequences, and we have the power to choose causes that create the effects we desire.
So it's about taking a responsibility for our choices
Right.
and understanding that we have the power to shape our own reality.
Precisely.
Okay.
And this brings us to the final principle. Gender, remember, it's not about biological sex, but about balancing the masculine and feminine principles within the mind.
Yeah, I'm still a bit fuzzy on this one. Can you explain it in the way that's easier to grasp?
Sure, think of the masculine principle as the active assertive force, the I that takes charge, makes decisions, and pushes forward. The feminine principle, on the other hand, is more receptive, intuitive, and nurturing, the me that listens, reflects, and allows things to unfold.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between taking action and allowing things to happen, kind of like a dance between those two forces.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And that balance is key to manifesting our desires and creating a fulfilling life. Too much masculine energy can lead to burnout and frustration, while too much feminine energy can result in passivity and stagnation.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all of these principles work together. They're like pieces of a puzzle that, when assembled, create a powerful blueprint for living a more conscious and empowered life.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of the Kybalion. It offers a holistic framework for understanding ourselves and the universe, and it provides practical tools for personal transformation.
So what's the best way for someone to approach this book for the first time? Should they just dive in and start reading?
Well, the video we've been discussing is a great introduction as it lays out the core principles in a clear and concise way. The Kybalion itself can be a bit dense and challenging to read at times, so having that foundation can be really helpful.
Okay. Any other tips for getting the most out of it?
Approach it with an open mind and a willingness to challenge your existing beliefs. Don't be afraid to ask questions, highlight key passages, and even journal about your insights. Most importantly, be patient with yourself. This is a lifelong journey of discovery and integration.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on the Kybalion and its potential to transform my life.
I think that's what we were hoping for.
Yeah.
Remember, these principles aren't just meant to be studied, they're meant to be lived. So experiment, explore, and see how they can help you create the life you desire.
Thank you so much for guiding us through this fascinating exploration of the Kybalion. I'm sure our listeners are feeling as inspired as I am to put these principles into practice.